Okay. So one of the things that that we want to do when we're talking about any of these sip and shares is, the focus is on the Suri fiber and how that relates to the particular medium that is the topic. So in this case, we're talking about Suri with crochet. And I guess one of the things that I have learned from crocheters is, and I think it maybe Suri um, impacts the product a little bit more, but my understanding with crochet is that it is a lot of times it takes about twice as much yarn um, as it does for knitting. And Surrey, depending on the blend, can be kind of a heavy yarn, kind of a straight yarn. It doesn't, by itself, it doesn't have a lot of elasticity. And so I don't know, I guess I would wonder, anybody here who has crocheted with Surrey, is that your experience that you have to use more? And if so, what sorts of things might you do to counter the weight? Or do you even need to counter it? Maybe it doesn't make a difference. So Yvonne.
So it is true that crochet does take more yardage than knitting. And I don't have a lot of experience in crocheting with Suri. I have some experience in a shawl and a scarf that I did, which doing it in a shawl and a scarf in the recipe that I used, which was at least 30% wool. It was Suri and wool together. The shawl was not overly heavy because the drape was there, I guess, but I didn't find it overly heavy.
Okay.
Because, well, mostly because of the lace work. So in
That's what I was
crochet,
wondering.
yeah, it opens itself up to lace work really, I mean, just really, really good, whether it's 100% Suri or whether it's a mix. But I didn't find it overly heavy compared to something I'd knit similar.
Okay. Anybody else? Laurel, you're a crocheter.
Well, that's being generous. I crochet. I'm not sure I'm a crocheter. I don't have a whole lot of expertise, but it's kind of interesting because I've been doing a lot of other stuff and not been able to do any fiber art stuff. And I thought, I'm gonna knit something with Suri. And I was looking for a pattern that was lacy and everything, and I found it absolutely impossible to do this pattern with Suri because it was like too slippery on the needles and the needles seemed cumbersome. And I thought, I think I'm going to look and see if I can find a comparable crochet pattern. And it's been lovely to do because it's just, I think for something like what Yvonne was talking about, where you're doing lace work, I think crochet beats the heck out of knitting the same sort of thing. The pattern may not be similar, but it seems to me that it's far easier to do a lacy project with crochet needle than it is with knitting needles. Does anybody, how does everybody else feel about that?
What kind of knitting needles are you using?
Well, I was using Susan Bates and I was thinking, I wonder if my experience would be different if I was using bamboo that adds a little bit of friction or whatever. But
Absolutely.
it was just,
so here is Suri on bamboo. And it's not slippery.
Right.
Where your metal needles are slick. And that's why I don't like, even with Wakaya, I don't like and this is just me personally, I don't like metal needles or plastic for that matter with any alpaca.
Yeah.
I like the wood because the wood just has enough more grip to it that it's not going to go sliding all over the all over the place. However, I have had these slip just a little bit, even though they are wood. I've still had the stitches kind of slip. So when I go to put this down, I got to make sure that everything is pulled out.
Yeah.
And so are there wood crochet
Yes, there are
needles?
wood, there are bamboo and wood crochet hooks.
Okay.
Personally, again, it's a personal preference. I don't like working with wood crochet hooks. I love working with wood knitting needles.
Okay.
It's a brain thing.
No, that's
It's
great. That's the kind of thing that we like people sharing here, that
But
there's no one right way to do it. Every
well, tools
situation is
are a
different.
personal preference, regardless of what craft you're going to be in.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's, you know, tools are personal.
Yeah.
Who else has experience working with crocheting with Suri besides Yvonne and I?
Kimberly, are you wanting to say anything?
I think Cindy's got her hand waving.
Oh, Cindy's got her hand
Hi.
up. Okay.
Hi. I
Hey,
I
Cindy.
I exclusively crochet. That's all
Okay.
I do. I'm having a little trouble with my with the format here. It says my video's stopped now, but that's probably just as well. Anyway,
We can hear you.
I use metal and plastic crochet hooks, and I like it, and I use 100% Suri. In fact, that's all I work with is 100% Suri and plastic and metal hooks. And I also work with oh, okay, so the name went right out of my head. The long crochet hooks, the
Oh,
Tunisian.
Tunisian. Yeah.
Tunisian, thank you. Tunisian. I love Tunisian crochet with alpaca.
So
It's
Cindy, what are you making? What kind of things what are your projects?
scarves and hats and cowls mostly. I don't have enough patience for longer projects. Although I have made a baby blanket. In fact, in one of the Purely Suri episodes long ago, I wrote an article about a baby blanket I made, and that was 100% Suri and Tunisian crochet. And anyway, I love crochet, but I'm here for ideas because, you could always do more.
So so when you made your baby blanket, was it more of a solid textile when you were done, or was it real lacy?
No, it was pretty solid. Tunisian crochet tends to be more of a solid, like an Afghan stitch. You know what I mean? More of a solid piece. And crochet in general does use more yarn than knitting. But when you're dyslexic like me and you can't count the stitches on knitting, crochet makes more sense. So that's what I do.
I think crochet is more forgiving too. So if you make a mistake
Yes,
knitting, it's real tedious to go back and fix the mistake.
yes,
But
I
if you
agree.
if you make a mistake in crochet, yeah, you've lost time and energy,
Yeah.
but you rip it out and
Mhm.
you start from where the mistake was. It's not nearly as frustrating. I was watching in preparation for these videos, I was watching material on YouTube about crocheting with Suri to see if there were any videos up there. And they call that process I guess in Great Britain of pulling out the yarn, when you're trying to retrieve the yarn after making a mistake, they call that frogging. Has anybody
I've
else
read
heard
that too. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting term. But the thing that was interesting on those videos is it appeared that all of the Suri that they were using, a lot of the comparisons were between, it was crocheting, but the
Mhm.
comparisons were with what appeared to me to be brushed Suri. they were treating it as though it was mohair, and they were comparing it
Huh.
between mohair, which was kind of intriguing. You know, they were talking about how it was there. Is that brushed stuff, Yvonne? Okay.
Yeah. So, so during our conversations that we've been having through all these sip and shares, I've been on a mission. I want to know why all of the commercial Suri yarn is brushed. And
Good
nobody can tell me.
question.
Nobody can tell me.
I think it's just because Peru has a lot more money than us. That's really
Well,
what it comes down to. So they're promoting it.
So I'm traveling right now, and I stopped in a little yarn store in Des Moines, Iowa today. And I told her who I was and what I did. And she says, "Oh, we've got Suri on the shelves here." And I said, "Okay, can you tell me why all commercial processed Suri is brushed?" And she said, "I couldn't tell you."
Yeah.
So
I
what
think I
what
think maybe it's just a different. I think maybe they're just trying to differentiate
So,
it from the
I
Wakaya.
think no, I think it's how it's constructed. So I don't know if you can see this, but there's a thread
Mm-hmm.
that runs through here, and the Suri is
Oh.
wrapped around it.
It's
Mm.
plied. Yeah. It's 100% Suri plied with silk or something like that underneath. Yeah.
This is blue sky, and it's merino and bamboo.
Okay.
So that thread is merino and bamboo, and there's probably some merino in this wrapped as well, but it's a thread. So this was blue sky, and then these other two are in a kit, and they're hand dyed in Florida, but I have no idea where the yarn probably came from. Peru as well. But again, looking at it, let me get a strand of it out of here. It again is a string or a thread.
Interesting.
It's a thread, and the alpaca is wrapped around the thread.
Yeah,
So-
you know, Yvonne, I'll tell you, when I long ago, somebody wanted me to work with or wanted me to make a brushed yarn. And there was a mini mill up in Canada that did brushed yarns, and they did bouclés.
Mhm.
And so I sent my stuff up and I got the brush back. And I just didn't care for it at all. You know, sometimes, you should be selling what people want, not what you want. But I was having a hard time because I really didn't like it.
Exactly.
And but I had a friend of mine. I said, I don't dye, but I said, hey, can you maybe dye this up and let's see what happens. Well, she dyed it up, and now again, remember, this is coming from a mini mill, it's not a commercial thing.
Right.
All that brush stuff fell out, and what was left was, and some of you have seen it or worked with it that I have, it's not quite a boucle, but it's that structure. It is a single ply. And then there's actually on these, there's two plies that wrap around. And what happens is that single ply, but there's enough loosening of the single ply stays really tight, but the two plies that go around loosen up because they're going in the opposite direction when they're plying them. And when you dye that, it comes up with all these little pearl bubbles. It's really cool looking yarn. And so, but that's the construction. For whatever reason, it's a single ply up the center. It's like a core ply, and then two plies around. That might have one ply, but
It's kind of a misnomer in my opinion, because it's not technically brushed. It's the way it's.
No, I think it is. I think it is brushed, Yvonne.
Is it?
Yeah, I think one of the things that has happened is mohair is extremely expensive to buy and purchase and crochet or knit with.
Really? I've got
Yeah.
tons of it. How much would you like?
I don't want any of it. But I think Suri perhaps because of the long staple length and the strength of the fiber, because Suri is stronger
Right.
than
Mhm.
fibers, it kind of lends itself to this kind of processing. And
Mhm.
people like that halo. But the thing
Mhm.
that's cool about the Suri, and this was talked about on a couple of the videos, is that the halo that the Suri provides, it actually is softer than its equivalent in mohair,
Mhm.
which
Of course it would
is
be.
interesting. Pardon?
Which is why they put a lot of silk with the mohairs to soften it up.
Yeah, it would be more, it would be softer than mohair. Mohair is not soft.
No,
Oh,
no, not
Kid mohair is okay, but
I would disagree
It's
with that.
okay,
I've
but
got
it's
a
not
lot of soft
Suri.
mohair.
yeah.
No, it's not. And I just dropped a bunch of yarn off at the yarn store that sells for me last night, and they were going gaga over everything I dropped off last night. And I had some Suri, straight 100% Suri in there. And they
Mhm.
looked at me and said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes, I'm sure." I said, "This is what Suri, if Suri is processed 100% Suri, this is what it looks like."
Mhm.
And they were dumbfounded
Hmm.
because it didn't
Yeah.
look like this.
Now,
Mm.
so, all right, so I'm gonna pull this back into the crochet
Crochet.
discussion. So, obviously for knitting, people use that. Is that something that brushed Suri, is that something that can also be used for crochet? Is there anything about
yeah.
crochet that makes it more or less challenging to work with the brushed stuff?
No.
I think you could use this just as well as anything else. I mean, it gives you both needle sizes for both knitting and crochet. So I think they're expecting you to potentially crochet with it.
Whenever you have a brushed fiber like that, though, it is a little bit, at least I find it a little more difficult to knit or crochet with, just because it's a little bit harder to see your stitches with the
It
fluff.
is. And do you notice any flyaway?
Well, I don't use brushed Suri because I've never had it spun at the mill that way.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so yeah, I'm talking too much. I want to hear other people's experiences.
Well, here's the only other thing I know on crochet. So I'll switch gears a little bit, but just thinking about the construction of yarn. So my understanding with crochet is that in a perfect world, the twist is opposite, right, of what knitters use, because typically when you're crocheting, if you're using knitting yarn, it can come undone. I guess you're twisting, so it can kind of come undone.
Really?
And I'm wondering, well, first of all, I'm wondering if anybody's experienced that. I've had a few crocheters who bought my yarns that have said that they struggled with that, but I've had other crocheters who have not had any problems. So I'm wondering, A, if that's any kind of issue for people, and particularly in Suri, because it is sort of slick enough that I'm just wondering if those plies maybe don't stick together as well as maybe they would in, say, a wool, or I don't know, a cotton or something like that.
Well, I have always only crocheted. So I didn't have the foggiest notion there was a difference between crochet yarn and knitting yarn. I just use yarn. Whatever anybody gives me, that's what I use. I mean, mine comes back from the mill, standard twist, whatever. Yeah, had no idea. News to me.
I'm not sure there is a difference between knitting yarn and crocheting yarn. It's some mills do worsted, what's called worsted spin. Some
Mhm.
mills do
Semi, semi,
no, it's I just lost my words. There's two different types. There's the worsted and there's the woolen.
Well,
Yeah.
woolen, yeah.
Yeah, and and sometimes too, and it sometimes might be the mill, especially in the mini mill, the artesian mills, it might be that they're not twisting enough. So I just had some yarn produced this last year, and I wanted to put high twist into it for sock yarn for strength, and it is the kinkiest stuff I've got. It came back super duper kinky, and I'm not sure why it's so kinky, but it is.
The twist.
Well, it's well, I asked if it was
Or not
I asked
balanced.
people if
I
it's
think.
the extra twist in it, and they're all telling me no. But I have to believe it is because of the extra twist in it.
Yeah, I think the twist is, and I may have this backwards. So one of them, when you do your single ply, you do an S twist, and when you do your plies, you do a Z twist.
You do the opposite.
In a perfect world for crochet, your single would be a Z twist, and your plies would be an S twist.
Hey Liz, this is Beth. I've heard that too, that, you know, with some people that they have more trouble if it is done the S twist first instead of the Z. But I haven't, I'm not an expert at it, but I have heard that.
Maybe that's for the individual that's like an expert crocheter and an expert knitter and can actually perceive the difference, because I mean, I both knit and crochet, and I've never had any issue with which way it's twisted.
Or if they're hand spinning and processing it on their own, they can control whatever twist they put in it, whether it's a Z or an S.
Yeah, and maybe that's it. I had a woman who is she was a big crochet design person, and she thought it would be neat to have like a line of, she had approached me about having a line of crochet yarn, and again the twists would be, you know, the opposite, but it would be really geared towards crocheters. I kind of struggled a bit, in part just working with Suri. The price point tends to be higher, and then on the yarn, and then when you add in the fact that it's crochet and it's going to take more yarn, I was a little nervous about, you know, what kind of sell-through we would have with doing that. But yeah, but I do remember her, that was a while ago, but I do remember her approaching me about that.
So I kind of wanted to ask everybody so one of the things that I noticed is that obviously if you're using the same needle size gauge, the same yarn, definitely and you're just doing like a single crochet stitch, and with the knitted piece you're doing just a stockinette, definitely the crochet piece is thicker, the end result. But I think one thing is that maybe by using crochet instead of knit, you actually add a little bit of not stretch, but memory to the piece, the nature of the knot. Do you guys think that happens with the nature of crochet? Adds a little bit more structure and body, and in a sense memory to whatever you're making than if you were knitting the same thing?
I think so. I think it's much easier to work with Suri in crochet. I know people who knit with it. I have a very, very talented fiber artist who boards her alpacas here, and she mostly weaves with Suri, but when she knits with it, she uses a special stitch that, you know, goes 3 forward and 1 back, 3 forward and 1 back somehow. I'm not sure quite how that works because I don't knit, but basically she said it builds more structure and stability into whatever she's working with. Now, I don't find that I have a problem with stability with crochet, and certainly you wouldn't with weaving, but the crochet seems to lend itself. I mean, think about all the doilies that are crocheted out of cotton string, for instance. And I think of Suri as similar to working with cotton in the sense that it doesn't have the memory and the stretch that the Wokai has. So anyway, so I think you're right, Laurel. I think crocheting actually lends some stability and shape holding ability and stuff to the Suri. Yeah.
And so my understanding is that there are maybe around, and I hate to use the word stitch because I don't know that that's really the right word, but there are 6 ways to crochet, 6 different, there's like a double crochet and a single
Oh
crochet
yeah,
and all that.
there are endless, yeah, endless
so-
crochet patterns. Yeah.
Are there certain, whatever you call those, stitches or
Stitches.
methods, are there any of those that you find, Cindy, maybe lend themselves a bit more to Suri than others?
No, I would say probably my favorite way to crochet with Suri is probably the Tunisian crochet, because I don't know, it just adds more to it, but it does use more yarn than the average crochet stitch.
So what are you making with your Tunisian?
The Tunisian, I make scarves with it. That actually, I have a piece here that I'm working on right now.
See, she doesn't need to worry about the needles falling out while she grabs.
No, because I just have my one my one stitch here that I know where I ended. But the Tunisian crochet, this stitch anyway, this is the basic. I don't know how well you can see it, but
It's hard to see since it's dark.
Plus, yeah, it's a black.
I mean, the color
and
is
it's
dark.
black, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. The color is dark.
Yeah, the color's dark. Well, there you go.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
There's the pattern on the front, and then the back. So it does make it's kind of like, the purl side of things on the back. So it does have a one-sided aspect to it when you do Tunisian crochet. But the thing that's different about Tunisian crochet is that with regular crochet, you complete each stitch as you go along. With Tunisian crochet, you hook under, you go across the whole row, and then you go backwards across it. So it's a little more like knitting.
Almost a cross between knitting and crocheting.
It's almost a cross. Yeah. And I enjoy that about it. It's fun to do. It's kinesthetically, it's appealing to me. So.
Yeah.
And so it does make a nice thick, you can see it's a nice thick piece of I mean, this is a little sport weight yarn. It's not thick yarn at all. So it really makes a nice, I make these black Suri scarves for the men in my life, they look kind of elegant when they're done, and they lay flat, and
you have
they're not bunchy and fun like the type I like to wear. But
how many men do you have, Cindy?
oh, I have 2 sons and 2 son-in-laws. And,
okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Kimberly, what kind of crocheting do you do? There you go.
Area. Well, I did bring it when we were talking about stitches. I thought that was interesting too, because I have a couple. I feel like I'm doing like a study in hats lately. Some of it, yeah, some of it my own homespun, some of it from the mill. 100%. And you're right, it is heavier, takes a little more. Like this one was, single crochet on the bottom and probably half double
Pretty.
crochet on the top.
Yeah, that's very pretty.
And this same thing, double crochet and single crochet. This one was heavy. This one's from the mill. I found the mill wound it a little tighter and it's 3-ply, a little thicker. So yeah,
3-ply.
it's warm. And then this was all single, with a little single band on it. And then I went a little crazy with my homespun and did a slug. And actually my homespun is a lot lighter, but it's all double crochet and nice little blend on the end. And I haven't noticed, I still do it the way I was taught to spin, that, S-ply and Z-ply. And if I have a problem with the strands coming apart, because I'm still learning how to ply correctly, really, that with crochet, it's very forgiving. You just loop it up and just keep on going, And then I had some fun for Christmas, and I covered some little jar candles and
Oh,
I think, yeah, it double crochet and single crochet on the top. And these, those turned out pretty light. I'd like to make some gloves that, because people want matching gloves to go with the hats, but I was worried for one, how much they would hold together. I was thinking about the memory and the stretch and the things like that. And I have no doubt they're going to be warm because, oh my gosh, your hands sweat while working with it. But I tried to learn how to knit, but I've heard from people when you start out crocheting, I've been crocheting since I was 10, so about 40 years, that I can't go back to knitting. The brush Suri, I'm learning to weave. I tried the brush Suri on my loom. A freaking nightmare. I'm gonna have to go in and vacuum everything. It just made a mess. And it binds up in your hand when you're crocheting it. It binds up in the loom.
You're talking about when it's brushed?
Yeah, that brush stuff. And you're right, it's hard to see unless you have a light color too, but it was just everywhere. I'm like, I still have a couple balls of it. I'm like, I don't even want to touch it. So, but yeah, I'm going back to the hand spun into but yeah, I really enjoyed making hats and scarves. I made a ton of scarves, made woven scarves and crocheted scarves and shawls. And Suri mixed with the sari silk. That was a pleasure to work with. I bought that from a mine. But yeah, I think I've had a lot of success with holding it together, and I agree with other people too that talk about if you try to make people have asked me to make sweaters and stuff. For one, I don't have the patience, and that's a large item, but I feel like it would start to drag, it would be heavy. My concern about that staying in the structure and the shape, I'd be like, why? I'm not going to do that. I'll make you a hat or scarf.
So Kimberly, when you're the yarn that you use, you mentioned a blend with silk. Do you typically do 100% Suri if you're working with Suri, or do you blend anything else in? Or?
No, when I do it myself, I don't blend it. It's 100% Suri. At the mill, I took my own stuff in, and I wanted just 100%. But I before early on when I bought a couple alpacas from the Kathy at the Creations down in Illinois, and she had a blend, and I just wanted to try it. It was beautiful to work with, but it was a strand of one of her blacks and a strand of one of her whites, and then a strand of green sari silk mixed in it, which is a beautiful pop of color. And I don't have it here. I keep it in my office to keep me warm. But that was, and it was a real big shawl, almost blanket-like, and that is holding together wonderfully. And it's heavy, it's warm. But yeah, that's my experience. I've been crocheting forever, and now the mission is how much can I crochet and get rid of a lot of my fibers?
There you go.
Everybody's getting Christmas
There you
present,
go.
but like
Mhm.
I said, the double crochet is holding together wonderfully, and it's warm. Um,
So Kimberly, let me ask a question for anybody who might be on here that is more of a beginner crocheter. So assuming that when you started and for maybe much of your younger years, you were not working with Suri since, you know,
I've only had
when you
5
picked up this kind of the Suri, was there anything that did you find yourself having to adjust any of your techniques or your methods?
Yes, you probably saw me laughing when you guys were talking about how slippery and silky it is. Um, that took an adjustment. I am a Susan Bates crochet hook person. That's why I started with that. That's the only thing I will use besides adding the little foam thing on the end now. I have tried plastic and wooden, and I like it slippery on my hook. But yeah, just getting used to holding it with your fingers and the tension and how slippery and silky. Even spinning it, there's a huge learning curve on that. And you could tell once it's mixed with wool. Oh, yeah, I'm such a snob now. Like I don't even want to. Somebody had me make scrubby pads for their daughter for Christmas, and I'm like, oh, ew. Like, ooh, I can't. It's hard to talk, but yeah. So I love the soft, the silky, the slippery. I'm having a great time with it. That's a pleasure to work with. Now, if I go back to something that's sticky or that doesn't slide on my hooks, I don't enjoy it anymore.
Interesting. Okay. Cindy, you've been working with Suri for a long time. I
Mhm.
don't know if you remember any adjustments that you had to make or anything like that.
I just remember thinking, can you hear me?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
we can
okay.
see you.
Oh, good. Yeah. I just remember using Suri for the first time and thinking, I don't think I could ever go back to using anything else. I mean, I do crochet with Wakaya. I'm not
Okay.
a complete purist, but the other thing that I've done a couple times at the mill is I've had them mix in 10% Wakaya of the same color.
Mhm.
And it gives the Suri a very, very slight halo and a little bit of I don't know if it could even feel silkier than 100%, but that's a neat blend. I really liked it.
Okay.
But I'm a purist. Give me pure alpaca anytime, because when you depart from that, you get rid of all the antimicrobial properties. You get rid of, you might be adding allergens back in if you're using merino or something. So I don't see any point in using anything else.
All right.
Wendy?
Anybody else that's any other seasoned crocheters here that can remember back to the days when they learned to crochet with wool or any other fiber and then made the switch? Been a
I
long
was gonna
time,
ask,
huh?
I was gonna ask Wendy what kind of stuff she does.
Well, Wendy has never crocheted with alpaca.
As
Ah.
Wendy crocheted at all? And that's
Yes,
fine.
I'm an avid crocheter. I crochet
Okay.
a lot, but I
Okay.
have never stepped into the world of, which is why I'm here. I want to learn from you guys. I have not done it yet.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully,
Sure.
hopefully all these guys are encouraging you and not scaring you off, but.
Yeah, no, I'm very encouraged to try it. In fact, I bought a
Like-
skein at the last show that I was gonna play around with and haven't done it yet.
So what
Alright.
kind of crochet, what kind of things do you like to make, Wendy?
I mostly do a lot of beanies, scarves, rectangles and squares things. Beanies I've been doing a lot of the last few years. I'm doing Christmas gnomes right now just for fun and, to
Mhm.
sell in my little shop. And yeah,
Yeah.
just whatever strikes my fancy. I look for patterns that are fun and that's what I do.
I love crochet at Liz's company makes a single ply, kind of a thicker, what you call bulky weight yarn. And I love crocheting hats with it. And the reason why is because just using a single crochet, it's thicker. And so the breeze doesn't get through. I mean, it's a very, very effective. In fact, I think my first one that I did, Liz ended up stealing from me. I'm not sure.
The hat.
Yeah, the
I
hat.
just had it on Facebook the other day and I gave you a big shout out, but you're not on Facebook, so you didn't hear my shout out.
Oh, I'm sorry. But yeah, that's one thing that I do like about it is it's, it can be a drawback, but it can be an advantage. And in the case of making hats and stuff, that thickness with the crochet, I think is a definite advantage.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that one's not lacy. That one's
No,
compact.
it's solid.
Yeah.
Solid.
A shout out to Wendy with making the gnomes. I had so much fun. I crocheted a couple and gave them away for Christmas presents. And just for appreciation, I used the real Suri locks for the beard. And
How fun.
it was the cutest thing ever. And then just put a little Christmas sprig in it. So remember to add that little cute little touch. It was adorable.
Laurel's got one. Where's yours, Laurel? You just showed it to me the other day.
Well, that was needle felted. That was
Yeah, it's not crocheted, but it
yeah,
had
not
this. It
crocheted.
had all the Suri locks on it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
What about Sally? Is Sally a crocheter or here for information? Or maybe Sally isn't here.
Well, her name's on here.
Sally, are you there? Oh,
From Sally to everyone.
laryngitis.
Oh, I have
What happened?
laryngitis. Oh no.
Oh,
Well, if you have any thoughts, Sally, feel free to type because we all saw your comment here.
what about Christine's iPad? Does Christine's iPad have any comments? You're live, Christine.
Nope. Or Beth. Yeah, Christine, let's see, you are not muted.
This is Beth. I've done more knitting and weaving with Suri than I have actually done crochet. So I'm probably not as knowledgeable as some people on using the Suri method. I just finished a scarf tonight that is, I know Cindy's a purist, but I had a little bit of tinsel in it. And then we used tinsel on it as a deflected double weave, and it turned out really nice. So I hope when I wash it, it still looks just as nice as what it does now. So I'm excited about it.
Was it knitted or crocheted, Beth?
It was woven.
Oh,
Oh.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
So
Cool.
Good.
Well, friends, I have a chiropractor appointment, so I am going to bow out. But thank you.
That's fine.
This
All
was
right.
fun.
Yeah.
Uh,
We've been on about an hour, a little shy of an hour. Does anybody have any other topic that they want
I have a
to
question
mention or?
for Kim and Laurel, if you want to jump in. So do you find that so when we were talking about stitches, so you've got your single, your your slip stitch, your single, your double, your half double, your triple, that the smaller your stitch, so say a slip stitch or your single crochet, maybe your half double, give you more structure than say you go up into your double crochet, triple crochet, where it tends to open the stitches up a lot more.
No, I was worried about that, so I did start with singles and half, and I was more worried about it with my own, because like I said, I'm still trying to get that proper ply and everything. But as I'm looking at it and watching things that I've made other people, it has not had any problem at all, and more than with it, it folds out and holds that stable structure. But yeah, so I started out with a lot of single and halves, and now I'm just opening up, doing doubles, whatever. Have it, treat it just like any old yarn, and haven't had any problems at all. And like I said, even my plying, I go back to some of my first ones that I've spun, and I'm like having to grab both yarn, plies to make it work. And, yeah.
What about your weight and your ply structure? So like yarn weight, what's your preferred yarn weight?
Well, I don't, when I do a real chunky, like a 4 on my own spun, then yeah, no, I haven't, where's that one half? So this was a double crochet with my own that was spun to be like a 4, and it's holding
worsted weight.
And
the commercial world.
Yeah, from the mill, they sent me I wanted a lightweight, what do they call it? Lightweight, yarn. It just slips my mind. And it's not, yeah, lace weight. And if you can see, I did a double crochet here, and it's very lacy and very thin. See through it.
Right.
This one, it crocheted up so nice, and it's gonna hold together really nice. So I'm really not having a problem with, small garments really holding together really well. Doesn't matter the stitch, doesn't matter anything. Like, even just making these little candle things, I've been pulling on them and stretching on them, and I love it.
So, was it you that said you were looking to do hand knits and that kind of thing and worried about those?
Yeah, I was worried about bigger garments with sweaters.
So I did a bunch of hand knits last year for Christmas, and I used my Suri. I did them in color work. So my main color was Wakaya based, but then my color work piece of it was Suri.
Okay.
And they're great. They're nice and warm too.
Yes. And even the lightweight, when you crochet it, it's doubled up. It thickened up to be a really nice thick hat. So just doing a tighter and this is half double for the most of it, and it was, it's a nice thick hat by the time you're done with it.
Well, and I think in either knit or crochet, if you were worried about something growing over time, I think if you go down needle or hook sizes and make a denser fabric to begin with, I think you're pretty safe.
Oh yeah, because I've been like pulling on this single one, like, so right. But it has an appropriate amount of stretch in there.
But even that, if it started to grow, throw it in the washer and felt it up a little bit.
Let it full out a little bit and let it. Yeah.
Keep an eye on it.
Yes, right. Well, I keep an eye. I've totally done that mistake.
You end up with a baby.
So you said that. Sorry, I can't raise my hand because I'm in the car.
You're fine.
So you said it takes more yarn, like to do a beanie, what yardage would you kind of expect to have?
So the ones I got from the mill were 200 yards and I didn't use the whole thing. So yeah, I had some left over, maybe another 50 yards. So
And that
100
was a worsted weight, 200 yards of worsted weight, did you
like
say, or
lace weight, lower lightweight.
lace weight? Okay, okay.
So haven't really measured my homespuns because I'm not into really measuring yet. Keeping track of it. I'm still in the experimental stage of
Maybe.
working with my own. Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
How does this, talking about throwing it in the washer, how do these items wash up? Since I've not worked with it, I don't know. You know, if you wanted to throw your beanie in, would you wash it in sink and cold water? How would you take care of that item?
When I do stuff for clients, which I do a lot of stuff for clients, I always tell them to hand wash and lay flat to dry. And if they have any questions or problems, come back to me with those questions or problems and I'll help them fix them. And usually if it's been something that's grown over time, we usually just throw it in the washer and shrink it up a little bit.
Cold water, I assume?
Hot water, warm water.
Oh, okay. And it doesn't overfelt?
Do you wash on delicate or are you just?
Yeah, and nothing else in the washer with them, just the item by itself.
And
Mhm.
no detergent, I assume?
Just maybe a hint, but no.
Okay.
Yeah, just
You could do the
just
same
really
thing. You could probably do the same thing in a sink of warm water as well, and then hit it with warm water, and then hit it with some cold water to shock it like you would normal felting, but don't agitate. You're
Okay.
just.
I don't felt either, so this is all new to me.
Yeah. Now there used to be a myth that Suri doesn't felt, and that's absolutely
True.
absolutely
No,
wrong.
it definitely felt.
Yeah, it definitely felt. It's just fine.
I just
But what
made a
we're
bunch of
trying to-
coasters. Felted
Yeah,
coasters.
what it
I
really is-
crocheted them, and then I felted them.
Yeah, that's kind of like that's really it's felting, but it's really pulling, is what.
Right. Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little different, but what you're trying to do is get those fibers to lock together a little bit to keep them from performing the same bad act again
Mhm.
of crocheting. So but I actually prefer crochet. Now I'm not doing sweaters and things like that, but for hats and scarves and things like that, I really prefer crochet over knitting now.
I might try a crocheted sweater just for grins and giggles. I don't know if any of you follow designers and stuff, but Marley Bird just had one out over for her turkey trot, and it's an open lace 3/4 length that I might try in Surrey just to see how it does.
Or how about like a vest? Maybe that's something that doesn't have as much, but that is longer than, say, a shawl. Something that is not a tight-fitting vest, but something
And
that
I would think the
drapes.
vest would be very similar to a shawl weight wise,
Mhm.
because you don't have sleeves.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of shawls are fairly long and wide.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. I mean, crochet is great.
Especially what are they calling the ones that kind of fold and drape, and I don't know, there's a word for that style.
I'm wondering, just thinking back to the knitting discussion we had, because we had a discussion about things growing, or how do you work with Suri to kind of, I hate to say prevent it, but certainly keep it to a minimum. And one of the things that came up was this idea of breaking up the types of stitches that you're using. And I'm just wondering, I was thinking about Kimberly's, the one hat that she showed where there was kind of, I'd call it ribbing, but that's not really what it is, on the bottom of the hat. And then another stitch. Like, I'm just wondering if you did a vest or a sweater, it looks to me on crochet like, yeah, like you can do different crochet stitches
Mhm.
in one piece. So I'm
I think
wondering if that might be something
The
too
key
that's on a
to
bigger
the
piece.
structure would be in what stitches you actually use. So if you didn't want it to grow over time, I think you would use something that's got a little bit more structure to it, like something smaller, especially crochet, something like what a half double would be the first I'd probably take it to open it up, but single crochet or slip stitches would probably be what's going to give you your structure.
Okay.
It's really hot right now, those granny square short sleeve sweaters. So might be
Those
the
are hot right now.
There you go. They are.
The wear sweaters and vests are just, they're the hot ticket right now.
they really
Yeah,
are.
I actually was at a trade show in New York, and the booth, and it was all commercial producers, and the booth across the way from me, it was a ton of companies from China, and the one across the way had, I was really intrigued. I never got to go over there because I was kind of busy, but they had hanging up a crocheted, or what appeared to be a crocheted, like short sleeved
Yeah.
sweater. But that clearly it was machine made. I mean, they're not all sitting there crocheting by hand. I was really
Well-
intrigued by that because I don't think I've really seen, or maybe I didn't know I was looking at it,
Out in
crocheted,
the commercial market,
machine crocheted. I haven't seen that.
there is no such thing. Supposedly, there is no such thing as machine crochet.
So they must have maybe it was knit, but somehow made to look like crochet, because it sure did look like those little squares
Yeah.
It could be
done
there are people
together.
who sit in the dungeons, you know, a nickel a day.
That's true.
Where
That was actually a discussion on one of the Facebook groups the other day. They posted a picture. It looked like exactly like a granny square
Yeah.
in a store for like $80. And it was actually like a loopy machine stitch that they
Oh,
machined on the fabric made to look like a granny square.
okay. That's probably what it was then.
It was, they showed a very close-up picture of it. I'm like, that's fascinating. You wouldn't
Yeah.
know unless you actually looked at it that it wasn't a real granny square.
Yeah. Interesting.
Cool.
They figured out how to trick us crochet people.
well, granny squares right now are the hottest ticket out there. So
Can you guys share some of your Facebook groups that you belong to? That are within crochet, and I belong to a couple, but sounds like you guys
Yeah.
maybe belong to some cool ones.
That one was
Well-
called Crochet Addicts, I think.
I don't. I think I belong to that one too, and I don't belong to a lot of crochet ones, but I follow a lot of designers, and a lot of podcasts.
Okay,
And
I've got one, Crochet Addicts.
one, I just dumped it. It was like crochet for vendors, but it was a lot of those little animals and stuff. And it
Oh,
wasn't
Aragurumi.
I can't say that word either.
origami.
Amigurumi, yeah.
Or it is.
Oh, origami?
Or gumi or
Aragurumi something.
the animals.
There are a lot of really good YouTube videos on fiber arts in general. If you want to learn how to crochet, that's one of the best things about the internet, is to be able to find out how to do something.
Mhm.
And
when you-
looking for more Suri specific, since, you know, crochet I already do, but
All
I
right.
find
Well,
the neatest patterns on some of these groups.
somebody needs to start one and link us all in it.
I think
Not
we need to get to the designers, and we need to entice them to do more designing specifically with Suri, both
Yeah.
in the crochet and the
And
knit
not-
world,
And not brushed Suri.
and
just
not brush Suri.
Suri.
The
Yeah,
real
I have a few, the woman that I worked with, and again, she's older, so she's probably not, in her time, I think she was it, but I'm not telling you she's it anymore, because she's older and she's a little more out of it, but Dora Orenstein was her name. But she did a few crochet designs for me. And she's like traveled all over the world and studied with all sorts of, kind of native crochet people in different countries that, you know, crochet differently and all that sort of stuff. And again, just really in her time, like really was actually pretty fascinating in terms of her knowledge about crochet. But yeah, I think we need more people to do a crochet. Maybe we'll do that, Laurel. Maybe we'll find somebody to do a couple of crochet patterns to add to the Suri,
great.
Suri network
I've got
cadre
some
of
suggestions for
patterns.
you.
That's a
If
good idea.
anybody's-
Thank you, Yvonne.
Anybody's looking for a last minute Christmas idea that takes like 10 minutes? Little
There you
Christmas
go.
minutes. And I just covered a little Christmas ball with
Yeah.
crocheted Suri, put a little sign on there. This is made with love from Kim, and the name of the alpaca Mindy. And
Cute.
so quick, simple to throw on everybody's Christmas package this year and get rid of more alpaca fiber. So
All
All right,
right.
everybody. I think I'm gonna wrap this one up. This is actually this has been nice. It's a small group, but it's been great to have everybody kind of participating. And I'm thrilled that you guys brought your stuff this time to share, because I have been remiss on the last two or the first two in reminding people to hold their work up and show it to everybody, because that's, you know, half the fun of making something, a lot of the fun of making something, right? So anyway, thank you everybody for bringing things to Sip and Share tonight and being able to share them with all of us. That's awesome.
And we hope you feel better, Sally.
Me too. There you go. Me too.
Yeah, I bet. Merry Christmas, everyone, and Happy New
All
Year.
right.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Goodbye.
And next one is I should say next Sip and Share will be in January, probably towards the end, and the topic will be weaving.
Oh, good. Good.
All right. Thank you.
Good night.